but only the relevant aspects. The second paragraph is where she describes the incident. She says, during the late evening of Saturday, 13 March 2021, I returned my house, she means to my house, situated on the corner of, and then she provides the address, to discover a break-in with my office ransacked, that is her home office, desk drawers emptied and pulled out, and my 2014 Daily Maverick Mac laptop stolen. Upon closer inspection, it became clear that the thief or thieves had also taken a personal MacBook Pro, which I had refurbished for my older daughter from her bedroom. This device had a Daily Maverick sticker on the casing. An iPad was taken from my youngest daughter's bedroom, and a handful of jewelry, and then she describes the jewelry that was stolen. She says other large ticket items such as a flat screen TV, Bluetooth speakers, various cameras, and even a small amount of cash were left intact. She goes on to say that I informed the Claremont police station that evening. An officer arrived, took a look around, and registered the case, and she gives the CAS number, which is CAS 139/3/2020. But I believe that's a typo because this was in 2021, so it should be 139/3/2021. I was later sent an SMS by a Sergeant N. Getra to acknowledge this. On page 2, she says, at the time, the officer could find no entry point to my house, which was Warring. Only the following morning, when 2 other more senior officers arrived to take a statement, was it discovered that the intruders had entered the house by cutting the iron burglar bars outside the lounge window. The curtain had been pulled shut, which is why the SAPS official the previous night could not find any entry point. A fingerprint expert arrived a few days later and informed us that the intruder or intruders had left no prints and had worn gloves, as was clear from smudges around the window frame.
Stop, rewind that in your head and really look at it. What you just watched was not the description of an ordinary burglary, and everyone in that room knows it. 2 laptops taken, one of them with a Daily Maverick sticker on the casing, an iPad, a handful of jewelry. And what did the intruders leave behind? The flat screen, the cameras, cash, actual cash, sitting untouched. What kind of thief walks past money to steal a journalist's hard drives? Then it gets darker. No entry point found on the first night. Only the next morning do senior officers discover the burglar bars had been cut, surgically, behind a pulled curtain. No fingerprints, gloves, smudges on the window frame, the only trace they ever left. This wasn't smash and grab. On the face of it, this was a professional operation, and the case was quietly closed, unsolved and forgotten, until now. Because this affidavit didn't land at the commission by accident. It landed here because of a WhatsApp message you're about to see put on the record. A message sent 2 months before that window was cut. If your skin isn't crawling yet, wait until you hear the timeline read out loud. Hit like and subscribe right now, because what comes next is the part they never wanted connected, and the commission is about to connect it.
Should be done about this journal? The date of that text. The date of the text.
17 January 2021.
Oh, all right, thank you.
And this incident took place on the 13th of March 2021. Now, Chair, I don't, this later housebreaking in March, on this evidence alone, can't conclusively show that it was linked to the WhatsApp exchange. But the sequence is alarming. And I raise it because it requires further investigation. It's a coincidence. It can't just be a coincidence, in my mind, which is why I think it needs to be referred.
That's exactly why I was interested in the closeness of the timing, yeah.
There it is, the line that turns a burglary into a question mark hanging over the entire police intelligence structure. 17th of January 2021. a WhatsApp exchange in which, on the evidence presented, a counter needed to be activated on this journalist. 13th of March 2021. Her burglar bars are cut and her laptops vanish. Less than 2 months. And listen carefully to how counsel plays it, because this is masterful. She does not overreach. She says openly that this evidence alone doesn't prove the link. And then she delivers the hammer. The sequence is alarming. It can't just be a coincidence as in her mind. That phrasing is a tightrope walk and she never wobbles. She's not convicting anyone. She's demanding an investigation and daring anyone in that room to argue the timing doesn't deserve one. And here's my blunt verdict. When a commission's own evidence leader says a coincidence is too close to ignore, that is not housekeeping. That is a flare fired into the night sky. But if you think the commission just accepted this quietly, you don't know how careful these commissioners are. Because next, counsel goes further and lays out exactly why this exchange should terrify anyone who believes in a free press. What she says about crime intelligence itself, that's the part that should be on every front page.
Would be significant. So, what is disturbing is that on the face of it, you have a senior crime intelligence officer informing another member of crime intelligence that a journalist appears to favor particular senior police officers, one of whom happens to be General Khan's superior. That's Lieutenant General Peter Jacobs. The response from the other member is not, well, journalists be journalists. It's, we need to do a, don't do that kind of thing, or trying to prevent him from taking any, trying to prevent the other officer from taking any steps that may be inappropriate. So what it shows is that there's a willingness to use intelligence, crime intelligence capabilities and crime intelligence resources for the purposes of using those resources against a journalist who you are not comfortable with their reporting. It's not a lawful policing objective. It's for the investigation of a journalist whose view you don't like. And it's important, it's not just a semantic issue. It's one, crime intelligence exists to analyze and gather information and intelligence for lawful policing purposes.
That was not legal housekeeping. That was an indictment of a system delivered in the calmest voice in the room, which somehow makes it hit harder. Break down what counsel just put on the record. A senior crime intelligence officer flags a journalist, not for committing a crime, not for endangering anyone, for writing articles favorable to his own superior's side of a factional war. And the response from the other officer isn't caution, isn't restraint. On this evidence, it's operational language. A counter. Activated. Counsel's verdict is devastating precisely because it's so simple. That is not a lawful policing objective. Crime intelligence exists to fight crime, not to monitor and intimidate reporters whose stories you don't like. If a journalist gets it wrong, you call the editor, you go to the press ombudsman. You do not, under any circumstances, reach for the machinery of state surveillance. And here's the systemic horror she plants like a landmine. If senior officers can even contemplate this, the safeguards aren't failing, they don't exist. Sit with that. That's my honest read. This clip is the thesis of the entire day. But the story is about to swerve violently. Because the man at the center of all this, General Khan, is lying in a hospital bed, and his lawyer is about to stand up and accuse the commission itself of fighting dirty, and he does not hold back.
It becomes worse when one has regard to evidence that was disclosed to us yesterday at 11:55. That's additional evidence outside of this small bundle here. And we have to object, or at least for purposes of this proceeding, object to the manner in which this incremental disclosure is coming about. We've previously highlighted and tabled our objection in relation to the disclosure historically, and now there's continuing disclosures. In fact, on Friday there was additional disclosures in between, which I did not object to because it seemed that it may have been a printing issue. But it's not, because those were material documents. And I now have to wonder whether or not the incremental disclosure and the leading of evidence, essentially by ambush, passes constitutional muster, we contend that it does not. So at the very least, we simply want our objection to be recorded for the manner in which these proceedings are being conducted by the evidence leaders. Ideally, Chairperson and Commissioners, this matter must be postponed until such time as Ms. Hassam tells us that the House is in order, this is the bundle, there's going to be nothing that's going to occur from this point. And at some point in time in the future, hopefully, with General Khan improving in his health, at the minimum, we can put before this commission an affidavit in answer to what Ms. Hassam has led and intends leading. Even if General Khan is unfit to come and testify in person, I would prefer that he is present so that he can refute the evidence, but right now he can't. And factually, and if I may draw from a colloquial expression, they're kicking him while he's down. And it troubles me significantly. Those are my...
Now that is a lawyer earning his fee. Whatever you think of General Khan, watch that performance again, because it was ferocious. His client is in hospital, unable to even converse with his own attorney, and the most explosive evidence of the entire inquiry is being rolled out in his absence. Documents landing at 5 minutes to midnight, an affidavit disclosed as proceedings commenced. Evidence by ambush, he calls it. And then the line that will echo through every headline. They're kicking him while he's down. Say what you want, that lands. It's raw, it's human, and for a moment it genuinely rattles the room. But here's my verdict, and I'm not sitting on the fence. It was a powerful speech attacking the process, because attacking the evidence isn't possible yet. And the response was surgical. Counsel Hasim, calm as still water. This is a commission of inquiry, not a trial. The affidavit only arrived yesterday. The commission has weeks left to live, a report due by the end of August. It was present this evidence now, or never presented at all. And the chair? He listened, he weighed it, and he ruled. The hearing proceeds, no postponement. The machine grinds forward. So with the objection noted and buried, we go back to the WhatsApp chats. And the very next exchange you'll see is the one that stopped me cold.
And it's now the 29th of July, 2021. At the bottom of the page, you'll see Mr. Valley says, they have conversations about other things, and then they return to this. 29 July 2021 at 7:41 in the evening, Mr. Valley says, inshallah, we get SAPS deal. And if you just scroll down to page 5262, Mr. Valley says, then we stash that money, you and I. Don't put back into system. And General Khan responds, I am not mad. Mr. Valley says, 100% build elsewhere. General Khan replies, definitely. The indication is that this is not merely a contract that would benefit one party, being Mr. Valley, but that it would benefit General Khan as well.
There it is. The message that, on its face, says the quiet part out loud. Inshallah, we get SAPS deal. Then we stash that money, you and I. Don't put back into system. And the reply from a serving Lieutenant General of the South African Police Service, I am not mad. Followed by 100% build elsewhere. Definitely. I have watched a lot of commission footage. I rarely see an exchange this nakedly incriminating looking read into the record with this little ceremony. Because think about what's allegedly being discussed here. A tender to service police vehicles. The fleet that's supposed to keep citizens safe. Being talked about as a private jackpot to be split and hidden. You and I, stash it. Keep it out of the system. Counsel offers two interpretations of what the system means. Either their own network of business partners who'd normally get a cut or, and hold your breath, the taxman. Skimming, money that never finds its way back to the fiscus. Neither reading is innocent. There is no third version of this sentence where it's fine. My verdict, this single page reframes everything that comes after it. every meeting, every our man, every inside update. You now watch it all through this lens. And speaking of inside updates, wait until you see the message about an adjudication meeting sent to Khan before the tender was even decided.
General Khan responds, "It's tops, bro." And then he says, "Morning meeting sitting today at 10 to adjudicate. Regards." So meeting sitting today at 10 to adjudicate. That was a message that was forwarded. So General Khan got this from somebody inside procurement, probably Mr. Fani, saying that they're now going to be adjudicating the bid.
35 seconds. That's all this clip is, and it might be the most quietly damning half-minute of the day. Morning, meeting sitting today at 10 to adjudicate. Regards. A forwarded message, meaning on the evidence, General Khan received that line from somebody inside the procurement machine, most likely the man the chats call Fari, and passed it along to the bidder. Let me spell out why this is radioactive. Adjudication is the sacred moment of a tender. It is supposed to happen behind sealed doors, with every bidder standing equally blind on the outside. That is the entire point. The second one bidder knows the committee is sitting, knows the rhythm of the process, knows when to push, when to call, when to ask our man for progress. The playing field isn't tilted, it's gone. And notice how the commissioners react. No gasps, no theatre. Instead, a razor-sharp procedural question. How do we know which messages Khan wrote and which were forwarded? The answer, metadata, a spreadsheet that tracks every forwarded message. These commissioners are not watching a show, they are building a record designed to survive scrutiny. That should worry everyone named in these chats. But if you think a leaked meeting time is bad, next, a commissioner stops counsel mid-flow and delivers in plain language the verdict this entire tender chapter has been building toward. And he does not soften it.
We are able to get that information. The second observation is, on its face, it appears to be improper that while a bid is being evaluated and you are one of the bidders, you are having meetings with a senior supply chain person in the very department. And
yes. So on your question, Commissioner Kamala, even assuming it was not in relation to the tender, the meeting,
yeah.
It would nevertheless be improper.
Yeah, improper. Because you don't know what influence he has. Does he appoint, for example, the people who sit in various committees? What exactly is his role? And those are some of the questions that may have to be answered for us. Because how else do you explain the various requests for meetings with him? And
Indeed.
It's clear that the discussion is about the tender, where there's interest by these two parties in that tender. They want it to be awarded to them.
Indeed, and what we see also, Commissioner Kamalo, from the chats is that there is information that you could only have if you were talking to somebody inside. So it has been brought to General Khan's attention that they failed to include in their bid 3 provinces, and that this is something that needs to be rectified at some point. So the information is coming from somebody who is close to the process. Whether Mr. Fani is sitting on the committee or not, we would need to establish. But it's certainly information that he has access to.
When a commissioner stops being a referee and starts calling the game, you pay attention. That's what just happened. Commissioner Kamalo cuts through weeks of careful legalese with one clean blade of a sentence. On its face, it appears improper that while your bid is being evaluated, you are having meetings with a senior supply chain official in the very department you're bidding to serve. No hedging, no, one might argue. Improper. And then he twists the knife with pure logic. Even if those dinners at Nova had nothing to do with the tender, it would still be improper, because you don't know what influence that man carries. Does he appoint the committee members? What exactly is his role? And counsel piles on with the detail that should chill you. The chats show information these bidders could only have if someone inside was talking. 3 provinces missing from their pricing. And General Khan knew before anyone should have. Here's my verdict, plain and simple. This exchange is the moment the tender chapter stopped being about messages and started being about a machine. A general in the police, a businessman with the bid, a contact inside Treasury, 3 points of a triangle, and the money flows through the middle. So how does it all pay off? Watch what happens when the deal finally hits a wall, because the general's reaction is so vulgar. Counsel literally cannot say it out loud.
Meeting went, I don't know what I can and can't say in this commission. Meeting went badly. Meeting went SAHIT. They won a retender for all the parts they missed. Basically buyouts, which are 70% of the volume. General Khan responds, Wassalam, Dum, C-U-N. No, this I shouldn't spell. Should I just say C? Chair, I see you stopped me, so I'll stop there.
3, 4. You could say C and 4 letters.
C, 4 letters. Dum, C. Followed by 4 letters.
Oh, is it on the screen? Oh my gosh.
Well, it didn't come out of my mouth.
I'm still thinking about the tongue lashing we got for the song.
Chair, it didn't come out of my mouth, but it's the evidence.
Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Valley's response to that is very. We chase tires, blood, we never give up.
You just witnessed the mask slip. For months on this evidence, it's all been bro and brew and blessings and thumbs up. Then the team's meeting with Treasury goes badly. The buyouts, 70% of the volume, the fat of the entire contract, gets sent to retender. Millions evaporating in a single morning. And General Khan's response? 2 words. The first is dumb. The second, counsel can only describe as a C followed by 4 letters, because she is not going to say it in a commission of inquiry. And then, the moment that made me laugh out loud in disbelief, it flashes up on the screen anyway. Oh my gosh! The room cracks. Counsel deadpan. It didn't come out of my mouth, but it's the evidence. Comedy gold sitting on top of something genuinely dark. Because strip away the laughter and look at what that fury tells you. That is not the reaction of a disinterested police officer watching a public process take its course. On the face of it, that is the rage of a man watching his money get away. You don't spit venom at an official over a tender you have no stake in. My verdict, this outburst says more than 50 pages of chats, and his partner's reply, we chase tigers, blood, we never give up, tells you they weren't done, not even close. Their next exchange proves it.
General Khan says to him no, or didn't say no, he says this was awarded to the above companies. And then Mr. Valley responds, oh, SHIT, and then General Khan replies, another disaster on the way. And then Mr. Valley says, yes, Brew, they effing it up. And then he follows that with the following, we need one big one, and then we chill. General Khan replies to that, we need one big one, and then we chill, with an emoji which needs to be flighted because, again, the Adobe conversion removed it. What you see is he responds with 100 and a...
If the stash the money message was the confession of intent, this is the mission statement. Another tender lands in the chat, and it's already been awarded to someone else. Another disaster on the way, says the general. They effing it up, comes the reply. And then, the line that should be framed and hung in every procurement office in this country as a warning. We need one big one and then we chill. And General Khan, a lieutenant general of the South African Police Service, echoes it right back. One big one, then we chill, with 100% emoji and a flexed bicep, which, in a detail almost too absurd to be real, the commission had to fish out of the original phone because the emojis kept vanishing from the printed bundles. Let me give you my unvarnished verdict. This is not the language of business. This is the language of a score. One big hit, and we're set for life. State tenders, public money, your money, talked about like a lottery ticket between friends. Every rand of it meant for police vehicles, for the machinery of public safety. And the tragedy is how casual it is. No shame, no caution, just appetite. But now the entire video pivots. Forget auto parts, forget purchase orders, because next we're getting on a private jet to London, and the invoice will make your jaw hit the floor.
And you'll see it's an invoice by Onyx Aviation that is issued to ZIG Revenue Management in the amount of 3.35 million. But also what's important from this document is what is the description on the invoice, and it refers to a charter fee, and the dates of travel are 28 July 2022 to 31 July 2022. And the routing is there, Lanseria via Accra to Farnborough, and the return Farnborough, Accra, Lanseria. And Farnborough would be Farnborough Airport in the UK. And we point out in the answering affidavit, and this is commissioned, this is on oath by our investigator, Mr. Nyatlo, that ZIG Revenue Management, which is a business owned by Mr. Z. Ngumalo, also a name that has cropped up in this commission several times, a businessman, paid Mr. Sayed's paid this company, Onyx Aviation. Mr. Sayed is not a director of Onyx Aviation, but he's associated with it. He's associated with people who are directors of Onyx Aviation. And Mr. Ngumalo paid Onyx Aviation to fly Ms. Mashazi, her husband, and her friends to London for a weekend in July 2022.
3.35 million rand. Read the invoice again. Not for a fleet of vehicles, not for a year of services, for one private charter flight, Lanseria to Farnborough via Accra, for a weekend, 2 days at the Corinthia Hotel, London, and who's on board according to the immigration forms? Ms. Mashazi, then a serving city manager, her husband, and 2 friends. Now follow the money, because this is where it gets truly murky. The invoice is from Onyx Aviation, billed to ZIG Revenue Management, a company owned by a businessman whose name, as counsel notes, has surfaced in this commission before. So, on the evidence, a businessman pays 3.35 million to fly a senior municipal official and her inner circle to London for a weekend. And the paper trail proving it, passports, clearance forms, the charter certificate, somehow ends up forwarded to General Khan's phone, with the passport images conveniently blurred by deletion. My verdict is blunt. Nobody spends 3.35 million on a stranger's weekend out of the goodness of their heart. Nobody. That is not hospitality. That is not friendship. On its face, that is an investment. And investments expect returns. Which is exactly where counsel goes next. Because her closing submission on this trip is the coldest, sharpest inference of the entire day. Do not move.
Second point in submission I'd like to make of concern that emerges from this evidence. The third is that the Commission would want to consider who benefited from this trip, beyond Ms. Mashazi and her husband and her friends. Because a payment of 3.3 million for a weekend flight is so far outside of ordinary hospitality or gift that it invites the inference that the person who paid for it expected something in return. And the question would be, if this was a gift or gratification, what influence or protection or access was expected from Ms. Mashazi in return, in her capacity as a city manager of Ekurhuleni.
And there it is, the sentence that hangs over this entire chapter like a blade. A payment of 3.3 million for a weekend flight is so far outside ordinary hospitality that it invites the inference that the person who paid for it expected something in return. That is a commission's evidence leader on the record, framing the question this country now has to answer. If this was gratification, what influence, what protection, what access was expected from a city manager in return? And remember the aftershocks. Council believes this trip was never declared. Ms. Mashazi stayed in her post until she retired last year, which suggests, on the face of it, that whoever knew about this did nothing with it, including potentially the general whose phone it all landed on. What was his interest in these documents? What did he do with them? Did he refer it to the Hawks, the NPA, anyone? The silence is its own kind of evidence. So here is my final verdict on everything you've watched today. A journalist's cut burglar bars, a counter to be activated, stash the money, one big one, then we chill. A 3.35 million weekend. None of it proven yet, all of it now impossible to ignore. This commission has until the end of July and the clock is screaming. Subscribe right now and hit the bell, because when General Khan finally answers, or doesn't, you do not want to hear it secondhand. You want to be here.